Hello, and thank you very much for joining today. My name, as always, is Malin Johnson. I'm here with the Counseling Center of East Algoma, located in beautiful Elliott Lake. Human trafficking. It's a horrific act. Normally reserved for thrillers and horror movies, it isn't until recently that this crime has been given the awareness it deserves. Nowadays, it's very rare for us to listen to music or see in culture the glorification of pimping and using women as commodities. As a reflection of experience, perhaps, but the following remains true, that the world would be a better, healthier, and safer place if it weren't for human trafficking. So let's search this topic, understand the subtleties and signs of victims, and also find out who to reach out to for help by listening to the stories of survivors. So as I mentioned, my name is Malin Johnson. I'm here with the Counseling Center of East Algoma. We are a free, confidential counseling agency available to anybody in the area. So if you or someone you know needs help for anything, tell them to pick up the phone and give us a call. We have two locations, one here in Elliott Lake at 9 Oakland Boulevard, and the other in Blind River at 1 Industrial Park Road, right across from the cop shop. Our phone number is 705-848-2585, and you can reach us anytime from 8:30 till 4:30, Monday to Friday. We also have a after-hours helpline, a crisis line, that you can access as well. So topics today. We want to just get into identifying what domestic sex trafficking and human trafficking is. We're going to learn some real stories and understanding the warning signs of what is behind human trafficking. And then finally identify who we can talk to, who is safe in the environment that we are in. So first off, what is human trafficking? Well, it's defined as the transportation, harboring, or extortion of an individual, typically for forced labor or for sex. This also includes forced marriages, exploitation, or treating them unfairly just to benefit from their work. Yes, it does happen in Canada. Sadly, we have to acknowledge too that this is a crime perpetrated towards women and girls. Between 2009 and 2016, 865 victims of human trafficking became known to the police. 95% of them were female, and 72% were under the age of 25. With about 20 or so communities along the Highway 17 corridor here in Algoma, and a population of approximately 115,000 people spread out along our rural route, yes, it definitely happens here. Between April and November of last year, Victim Services of Algoma identified 67 survivors of human trafficking just in our area. So let's take a look at the signs of human trafficking. They can be subtle, such as mood changes, or just as apparent as new phones, purses, jewelry. But by paying attention to key points and key factors, you too can identify the traits of victims.
It isn't as clear today of what modern slavery looks like, but by knowing the signs of human trafficking, you can help protect yourself and you can help protect others. Traffickers would often brand their victims with tattoos, using words such as daddy or cash. Trafficking victims may show sudden changes of dress and behavior. They may suddenly have possessions that they usually can't afford. They may have unusually long work hours. Victims may have new relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends that are noticeably older, and I'm not talking about a few years. Difficulty with making eye contact, especially with men. Victims may have untreated medical problems, such as cuts, bruises, burns, broken bones. They may miss school frequently, make frequent trips. Victims may be unable to speak independently. Other people may insist on answering questions for them. or even translating for them. Victims may even be frightened of authorities, seeing them as the bad guys.
Because we know that the majority of victims, sadly, are children or young adults, keeping an eye out for these key indicators can help you in identifying and raising red flags. So first, under the academic stream, they might be academically unengaged, so they're not interested in school or they're not attending school. Their grades will reflect this as well, so they're performing under their grade level. They also have, it could be a dramatic switch, so they could be doing well up until a point, and then all of a sudden the grades fall off. This can be tied into behavioral changes as well. So if an individual starts to avoiding eye contact or has gaps in memory, perhaps resists being touched, these can lead into physical traits. Perhaps there are signs of bruisings or scars that weren't there before. They may appear malnourished. They could also show signs of drug and alcohol addiction. All these things relate to low self-esteem. They may start to exhibit depression or anxiety or fear. Or they may exhibit a sudden outbursts of energy. Socially, you might see them with a much older partner. And as the video indicated, it's a much older partner. Another key identifier is perhaps that they are living in an unstable or in an abusive home. And you find that their social media is exceptionally provocative or sexual. For those of you watching that are in the hotel industry, please take a look at the resources in the comments section after the video for seeing signs of victims solicited there. So how do we know these things? Well, we only can learn from those who sadly have experienced this, and by listening to them. Up next, we have two of just those kinds of stories, from Michelle and from Karen.
My name is Karen. I grew up in a small town in Ontario on a farm with my 6 siblings. I'm the second youngest, so growing up with 6 siblings was interesting. It was fun. You always had somebody to talk to, which was great, but sometimes it was also difficult. I'd say I was a pretty average teenager, yeah. You know, did the same things. Lied to my parents sometimes, snuck out once or twice. When I got to high school, I was definitely interested in the guys there. I mean, they're all farmers, so, which is what I wanted. It's funny with my family, dating isn't something you start doing until you're 16, and that's group dating. So you go with like your youth group or a group of friends, and then once you're 18, you're able to go out on single dates. Something definitely changed in my year before grade 10. I was turning 15, so technically I was still 14 when I met him. I was working at a grocery store when I met this person, and he also worked there. We talked a lot and got to know each other, at least he got to know a lot about me, so it only took, a couple months of the summer before we started secretly dating. He was 23, so that's a big age gap. At that time, we had 13 kids in the house, and so he was giving me the attention that I was really, really craving. When we started to secretly date, it was exciting and fun. You're in your own little bubble. He's showering me with praise and attention and gifts and love, or what I thought was love. I was at his house. My parents assumed I was working. He was making us food, and I confronted him on the fact that he had passwords to all of my accounts, social media and stuff like that, and that wasn't something that I was comfortable with him doing, and so I basically told him if he doesn't trust me, then I'm going to leave him. And that was the first time that he hit me. I kind of went into survivor mode because I had faced abuse before I was adopted. And so I think that just, it was like I pulled away from my body and just, I wasn't there. I didn't tell anybody about what happened. So after that first time, the physical abuse got worse. It turned into emotional abuse as well, and sexual abuse. It went on, it was like a cycle. He would abuse me in a certain way, and then a couple days later come back with a gift. So it was those few days in between each of the times where he would go and hit me or something. Those were the days that I held on to and would think about, and that would be the reason why I would stay. It lasted for almost a year before people found out what was going on. There was a lot of mental abuse with him. He'd tell me I was worthless, that nobody else would love me, that I was his and his only to use. Things were definitely getting much worse near the end of our so-called relationship. He caused me to make a decision that I, to this day, regret. And he came back with a gift, which was to take me on a trip anywhere I wanted to go. The country that I was obsessed with was Greece, so obviously that was the place that I chose for us to go to. What led up to our final moments being together, it was a week before we were supposed to leave. He got up to go to the bathroom, and in those few minutes, I felt all of the pain that I should have been feeling for the past almost year. I knew I couldn't be there anymore, and I decided to run to find help. I didn't even know where I was going to go to get help. I just knew I needed to get as far away from him as possible. And I kept running and running and running. And there was a stop sign that was there, and I will always remember that stop sign. And just past that stop sign was a house, and I knew the people that lived there. And I thought in my head as I was running, all I need to do is get to that house and I'll be safe, I'll be fine. And the next thing I remember is seeing that stop sign upside down because he had gone and hit me with his car.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I grew up with my 3 younger siblings and my parents. Unfortunately, around the age of 15, my parents weren't doing the best. I grew up taking care of my younger siblings, but they were getting older, doing their own things. Suddenly, I felt that instead of being needed and wanted, I was alone. Everyone was going their different directions. I didn't have many friends at school. I did, but outside of school, I was kind of just on my own because I spent so much time with my family, and now they weren't a unit anymore. So I went from school being not so great, home life not being so great, so I was just looking for more excitement. I was the most responsible. I was the best child. Honestly, I was the best child you could ever meet, but unfortunately, I went south fast by meeting the wrong people. My friend and I had a best friend. We were really close. When we were 15, it was a Friday night. I can remember to the day what I was wearing and the circumstances. Had nothing to do. It was a Friday night. We went to the mall. We're like, oh, what are we gonna do? There's nothing going on. We're 15, we can't drive, we can't do anything, we can't buy liquor, we just wanna have fun. So she met these guys, added her on Facebook, and she's like, oh, this guy added me on Facebook, he wants to meet up, we should meet up with him. He's 19 and he can buy alcohol, he has a car, he'll pick us up. And I was like, whoa, this is like the best night ever. So we walked from the mall to Taco Bell. We waited at Taco Bell for him to pick us up, and There was 3 of them. So it was 5 of us in the car. He drove a nice car. They dressed nicely. They were ready to go to the clubs. They're all dressed in their like suits and nice. And I was like, whoa, this is the life. And I got in the car and they took us directly on the highway, and that's my first day of meeting them. But the minute we got on that ramp to go onto the highway, my mind told me that it was the wrong decision. I didn't know these guys. I was the perfect kid, so for me to go in a car, going on a highway, not knowing where we were going, with 3 complete strangers, being 15, I didn't think it was right, but I didn't want to say anything, didn't want to be uncool. That night, we drank. We didn't drink like whatever we could find in our parents' liquor cabinet. We drank Patron and Hennessy, and they bought us whatever we wanted. We smoked weed, we did this, we did that. We drove around. We picked up a car, dropped off a car, picked up another car, dropped off another car. It was very weird lifestyle, but it was odd but intriguing. They were so nice to us. Like, the world was ours. That's what it felt like. Things started going bad during the summer. My friend no longer wanted to hang out with them. She said that they were bad news and she didn't feel right about them. So I started hanging out with them on my own. Started being more of their friends came along. Hey, show my boy a good time. Show my other boy a good time. And my other boy a good time. And I was very naive, and I just went along with it because I was very awkward in the situation, but at the same time I wanted to please, and they accepted me and they made me feel wanted, so I went along with it. But when September came along, that's when I was full into the swing of realizing that they weren't my friends and this is not what their intentions were at all. My first experience, I guess, knowing that this was not fun and games, I was picked up from my house. He picked up his friend and we went to an apartment complex. He told me to go with his friend and just listen to him. He's a good guy, he'll protect you, just go with him. So he walked me into the apartment building and we went to the elevator. We started going up the elevator and he said, listen, you're going to go to this guy's door, knock on the door, whatever he says, you're going to do it. And then I'm going to wait at the stairwell, and as soon as you exit, you're going to come to the stairwell and meet me. I was so confused. I had no clue what he was talking about. I couldn't even imagine. I didn't know this guy. He was way older than me. So I was so scared, so nervous. I went to the apartment door, I knocked on the door, and it was like a middle-aged gentleman. And he offered me a drink. I declined. He said, oh, don't be so tight. Anyways, I did whatever he said, like I was told. And on the way out, handed me a wad of cash and hugged me goodbye and looked both ways before he opened the door and sent me out. And upon arriving to this guy that I've known for half an hour, he was like, did you get the money up front? I said, no, but here it is. And he's like, the one rule that you always remember, money up front. That was my first lesson and first experience. I was 15 years old.
After I got back from rehab, a couple police officers got deeper into his past. They found out that the name that he had told me wasn't his real name. He had lived in other very small towns, had dated young girls, 5 other young girls, then had taken them on these special trips, and these girls were not heard from again. And there was computers in his room with dates on them of our landing in Greece and of a meeting with people in the hotel that we were staying at, and then his fly-out date a day later. If I didn't run out of that house, I would have gone on this trip with him, and I would have been sold for human trafficking. He would have sold me.
When people say, if with any addiction or anything, people say, they have to get to rock bottom. I was at a point where my parents were like, you can't stay in the house, you can't subject us all to this. So I wasn't gonna have a place to live anymore. I didn't graduate high school. I didn't have a job anymore because I can't keep a job and work these hours. And I couldn't do Everything I tried to do turned to nothing. When I was once making thousands of dollars, now I'm making nothing. I'm actually paying these guys so I don't have to go on jobs. I'm stealing from my parents because I don't want to go meet somebody. And the only way to not meet someone is to produce the money that I would have made. My mom gave me every resource. Like, she called every agency she could possibly find. So she gave me Walk With Me's number, and I called, and I was like, the lady on the phone was like, oh, we'll help you, can buy you clothes if you need clothes, we'll get you a hotel if you, I don't need any of that, I'm fine. And then I was actually sitting on a park bench because I was kicked out of my house by my father, so I was like, I could use a place to stay, but that's fine, it will be fine. So I called, and somehow I just trusted her, and she never made me do anything, because when you're in that lifestyle, forcing people when they're being forced to do everything every day is not the solution. It's that compassion and that care and that belief that you're not lying or deceiving that really turned my whole life around, and I'm thankful every day for that.
Our number one goal is to help those in need. I want to help victims get out of the game. I don't care if he got you to do something else criminal, it doesn't matter. We're not looking at charging victims, we're only looking at helping them. Secondary to that, I want to put these pimps away so they can stop exploiting other girls. That's our goal. Help the victims and put the bad guys away. It's never too late to get out. If your instincts are telling you to run, please run. Call 911, call somebody who can help. There's a lot out there, a lot of help, and we are just one part of that.
So let's take a look at some of the emotions that these two girls felt and their feelings ultimately as well. In a healthy relationship, a partner should never prey on your vulnerabilities for their personal gain or their financial gain. Michelle's family life was very busy. The adults there were unattentive. She was always responsible, always having to take care of not only herself, but her brothers and sisters. It was super exciting to have these older guys around. They made her feel really special and cool. Human trafficking does not always involve sex. In fact, human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to get a person to provide labor or commercial sex. Worldwide, experts believe there are more situations of labor trafficking, in fact, than of sex trafficking. However, there is much wider awareness of sex trafficking in Canada than of labor trafficking. Not to say that doesn't exist. Another key point that we must know is understanding the risks of lethality. So tragically, women and girls are killed at unprecedented rates in Canada. But as they relate to human trafficking, individuals who come from vulnerable or marginalized backgrounds are at greatest risk. Victims of human trafficking are usually financially vulnerable. They have limited family contact. They may be experiencing emotional distress, homelessness, poverty. They may suffer from substance abuse or a mental illness, perhaps learning disability or developmentally delay. They may have experience of childhood sexual abuse and a lack of support or a lack of counseling. The number one factor, however, you will notice is the sudden change of behavioral patterns within the victim. That's why it's vitally important to know the signs. So knowing this, how can you, me, we all be safe? Who's ever heard of the term oversharing before? One of the common risk factors for individuals lured by perpetrators is through the use of social media. Who has a public Instagram account? Facebook? What kind of pictures and thoughts are you sharing? Where are you being tagged? What are your privacy settings? All these factors can be used to manipulate a victim. By understanding what the signs of a healthy and unhealthy relationship are as well, you can be preparing yourself if you are ever approached by a potential human trafficking perpetrator. Tune in next week for our Healthy Relationships presentations to learn more about healthy relationships. Talk to somebody that you can trust. If your friend is in trouble, or if somebody discloses to you some problems that they're having with their relationship, such as I'm being threatened or I'm being coerced, be a good listener. Don't judge, and encourage folks to get help. No matter what they say, they are not in trouble. It's really, really important for you to pass on that message that they are the ones that are the victims in the situation and in no way are responsible for what's happening. There's also that gut feeling. Who's ever had that before? Yeah, nervousness, anxiety, stress can have big physical effects on our body. And by being hypersensitive to those triggers as well, it can help you understand a situation. So if somebody tells you a story and it doesn't feel right, usually that feeling comes from the tummy. Listen to it. If it's bothering you, then talk to somebody. It's probably a reason. Don't be scared. Just feel empowered because now you know. Learning about human trafficking can be uncomfortable. It can be scary. But what you can do with those feelings can shape the way that we deal with human trafficking. Your job isn't to solve the issue. Your job is just to have knowledge and use that knowledge for good. We must listen to and believe stories of victims and survivors. If someone discloses to us their story, even if it seems unreal or overwhelming, your job isn't to judge, it's just to listen, to believe, and to empower. So know the supports that are available to you and to them, whether it's Victim Services of Algoma, Maplegate House for Women here in Elliott Lake, or the Canadian Human Trafficking Hotline. You can contact help when you need it. If you have any questions or simply want to learn more about human trafficking, understanding the signs, or perhaps finding the resources to help an individual, feel free to pick up the phone and give us a call. Our phone number again is 705-848-2585. My name, as always, is Malin Johnson. Thank you so much for joining this week, and we will see you later. Bye.